Welcome to Zukkun Knows. Imagine a war that never officially started, had no clear battlefield, and yet involved almost every country on Earth. That was the Cold War. While no nuclear missiles were fired directly between the US and the Soviet Union, this cold conflict shaped the modern world in ways most people don't even realize. In this episode, we'll explore how the Cold War began, the hidden battles that were fought, the strange ways it influenced our everyday lives, and how it continues to affect global politics even today. Let's dive into one of the most important and least understood chapters in modern history. 1. What was the Cold War? The Cold War was a decades-long conflict between two global superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. But this wasn't a typical war. There were no direct battles between these giants. Instead, it was a war of ideologies, economics, technology, and influence. At the heart of it were two very different visions for how the world should work. Capitalism versus communism. And while the weapons were mostly silent, the consequences were loud and global. 2. Why did it start? The Cold War began after World War II. The US and the Soviet Union had worked together to defeat Nazi Germany, but their alliance quickly turned into rivalry. The Soviet Union wanted to spread communism. The US wanted to contain it. As Europe recovered from the war, both powers tried to gain influence over countries through aid, threats, and alliances. This led to a divided Europe, and eventually a divided world. 3. Two opposing ideologies: capitalism versus communism, democracy versus dictatorship, freedom of speech versus state control. These weren't just political systems. They were deeply emotional beliefs. The US portrayed the Soviet Union as an evil empire. The USSR painted the US as greedy and imperialistic. This war of ideas was fought through newspapers, radio, education, even Hollywood movies. 4. Proxy wars and conflicts. While the US and USSR didn't fight each other directly, they supported opposing sides in other countries' conflicts. These are known as proxy wars. Some major examples include the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Soviet-Afghan War. These wars killed millions and left lasting scars on many nations, all because the superpowers wanted to win without directly clashing. 5. The nuclear arms race. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the Cold War was the nuclear arms race. Both sides built thousands of nuclear weapons, enough to destroy the planet many times over. The strategy was called mutually assured destruction, or MAD. If one side launched nukes, the other would too, so neither side dared to start. People lived in fear of nuclear war. Schools held duck and cover drills. Families built bomb shelters. The threat was everywhere. 6. The space race. The Cold War didn't just stay on Earth. It extended into space. The Soviets launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, in 1957. The US responded with NASA and the race to the moon. In 1969, the US landed the first humans on the moon. But behind the science and adventure was a deep desire to prove technological superiority. The space race accelerated innovation, but it was driven by fear and pride, not just curiosity. 7. Spies, secrets, and surveillance. Spying was everywhere. The CIA in the US and the KGB in the USSR ran massive operations. Double agents, secret missions, and elaborate codes were the norm. Some of the most dramatic Cold War stories came from espionage. Books and movies like James Bond were inspired by real events, but real spies lived far more dangerous and less glamorous lives. 8. Everyday life in the Cold War. The Cold War wasn't just politics, it shaped people's lives. In the US, there was fear of communism and political witch hunts like McCarthyism. In the USSR, people lived under strict state control. Even pop culture was affected. Music, film, and art were used to promote ideologies or criticize them. The Cold War was everywhere, even if you didn't see it directly. 9. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. The Cold War began to end in the late 1980s. The Soviet economy was collapsing. Its people wanted change. Meanwhile, democratic movements were rising across Eastern Europe. In 1989, the Berlin Wall, a symbol of Cold War division, fell. In 1991, the Soviet Union officially dissolved. The Cold War was over, but its legacy was just beginning. 10. How it still affects us. Today, many of today's global tensions, from NATO and Russia to nuclear concerns with North Korea and Iran, have roots in the Cold War. Even the internet, GPS, and many modern technologies were accelerated by Cold War competition. To understand the modern world, you have to understand the Cold War. It's the silent force behind so many things we take for granted. Thanks for watching Zukkun Knows. History isn't just about the past. It's the lens that helps us see the present clearly. See you next time. And remember, knowledge is your best defense.